So I come from a family of retailers. And my father, who runs a few shops, he says to me, there's never been a more crazy time to be a retailer. It's never been more difficult to make decisions, the complex, chaotic decisions they have to make. How does he go forward? What the hell does he do? And he says that back in the day, it used to be simpler. Back in the day, you used to stand there in a retailer, you'd have all the products behind you, you'd have a counter in front of you, the customer would have to come in, ask you for whatever it is that they wanted, and you would decide what they had and you'd hand it to them. But the story of the last few decades in retail has been one about the empowerment of customers. And so as soon as you take away the counter and you start letting them play with the products in store, it all changes. Decision-making changes for the retailer. It's much more nuanced, much more complex. And that really reaches its zenith with the digital revolution. So this is what Howard Schultz says. He says, overnight, the digital age changed the course of history for our company. Everything that we thought was in our control no longer was. And this is what we see again and again. So at Valtech, we work with companies to help them understand, okay, so there's this thing, it's disruption, we all know it, right? The internet's probably going to be a thing. So we need to actually make decisions. But what do we do? How do we move forward? And of course, every brand is different and every business strategy is different. But we think there are three pillars that underpin every single business strategy in how to make sense and understand this world and make decisions. And those are the three things I want to talk to you about today. They're orchestration, integration, and evolution. So first up, orchestration. So the principle of orchestration is to say that it is virtually impossible to gain competitive advantage in a modern world unless you can orchestrate and design services around a consumer. Orchestrate experiences across time, across channel, across device, across territory. So what I want to do is give you an example of a brand that didn't get it, an example of a brand that did understand the importance of orchestration. So we had Instagram on the stage earlier with a great talk. So Instagram, as many of you will know, was sold for $1 billion in 2011. In that exact same year, Polaroid went bust. And some of you look far too young to remember this, but Polaroid was this fantastic thing that it sounds stupid now, but within 5 minutes you can have an instant picture. And Polaroid had so much brand nostalgia and still does. It's a fantastic brand. Many people love it. My friend, and this is an honest true story, has a Polaroid loo roll holder. And in 2011, when Instagram was sold, and Instagram, what it does effectively, as the previous Tracy was talking about, it overlays a filter on an image. What do you think the most popular filter in 2011 was? Polaroid. So what does that tell you? That tells you there's all this brand nostalgia. People love this brand. There's no reason to have that thick white stripe if you're not going to hold the photo and shake it. People are doing it because they love the brand. So why did it go bust? It went bust, if you ask me, because Polaroid forgot about orchestration, or at least they didn't understand. They thought their job was about manufacturing cameras and developing celluloid, but it wasn't. Their job was capturing memories. And more than that, capturing memories and sharing them instantly. That was it. They were the Instagram for an analog world. But they didn't have a direct relationship with customers. So they went on producing great cameras, developing great celluloid, but the customers changed. And the empowerment of the customer, they weren't orchestrating experiences in the same way Instagram was. And this impacts retailers. So I know retailers intuitively had a better understanding of customers because of the store. But the next year, in 2012, HMV goes to the wall. HMV goes to the wall, even though it had a retail store on every single high street in the UK. And in that same year, a manufacturer in Apple, who'd been in the business less than 10 years, who'd been in retail less than 10 years, did $19.1 billion just on music sales. A manufacturer with a direct relationship to the customer and a different way of orchestrating the experience for them. That's 2012. In 2013, Blockbusters goes to the wall. Blockbusters had 9,000 stores. But they honestly thought that their business was actually taking DVD boxes and putting them on the shelf. But it wasn't. If you ask their customers said, no, no, no. Your job is to provide a cinematic experience into every family's home. And they forgot that, and they didn't orchestrate that experience. They honestly thought that a customer would prefer to put on their coat, get in their car, drive around to the shop, desperately hoping there was a DVD box that actually was for them. They thought they'd prefer that than an orchestrated experience of pushing download in your pajamas or underwear at 3 a.m. in the morning. My point being is orchestration is everything. And every manufacturers like Apple, right, and will show the way to having a direct relationship with customer. And I'm always amazed when I speak to retailers that they don't realize that agencies like ours, whenever we work with a non-retailer, they're asking us to turn them into retailers. Everyone needs a direct relationship with the consumer because they want to orchestrate experiences. So let me give an example of one of our clients who's doing this much better. So Audi. So Audi exists in the automotive industry, and nothing could be a better iconic example of the Industrial Revolution, the automotive industry. Henry Ford with his Model T Ford, you can have any color car you want as long as it's black. And everything was about economies of scale. He realized a 400% efficiency in car production simply by piling lots of people into a factory. There were those two philosophers that defied the Industrial Revolution, Karl Marx and Adam Smith, one on the left, one on the right. But both of them said the same thing. They said the way you make money during the industrial age is you own the means of production. You own big factories and you pile in people and you divide that labor. That day's gone. Production is now largely a trivial exercise. If you here have an idea whilst you're sitting here listening to a talk, you could probably put a CAD file open on your phone, send that to China and get it produced cheaper than the guy who owns a factory next door. The point is that the Industrial Revolution was about production, efficient production through scale. But the digital revolution is about consumption. It's not about economies of scale, it is about economies of experience and finding efficiencies and opportunities in experience. So this is Audi. This is the Audi City store that's just down the road in Piccadilly. And they've got them now all over the world, and we played a part in helping them put that together. And what Audi said is they said, oh, well, we manufacture, we're production people, but actually we now need a direct relationship with customer. And they didn't want that in some sort of garage miles out of town. So they went and they bought retail space. But what do you do in retail space? Well, actually, you can't bring all the cars into the middle of Piccadilly. So what do? They provided a digital orchestrated experience. And what you'll see here is not a Henry Ford model. I don't ask the customers what they want. They'd say faster horses. You can have any color car you want as black. This is not about mass production. This is about personalized, orchestrated production. These are people co-creating the very car that they are just about to purchase. It's a co-creation exercise. And they are having a direct relationship with the customer. Another one of our customers, IBM, BMW, just launched BMW i, their range of electric cars. You can only purchase them direct from the manufacturer. The dealership, which is the retailer of the automotive space, is being disintermediated by manufacturers who say, no, we're not just no longer going to sell you the car and then you sell it on in a shop window and we'll get on with the busy job of economies of scale at the back. No, they need a direct relationship with customer. But it doesn't just stop at the point of purchase. Audi are willing to think even further than that. So here is something that we're helping them trial. Here was something we were helping them trial. It's amazing. Well, you can see it on that far one. It's so secret that we're only going to show it on one screen. But this is something we're doing in the Nordics out of our Swedish office. We're helping them. We built this little black box, and it's got some iBeacons and some software, some crazy stuff in it, and it recognizes when you're close to your car. And Audi said, well, hey, look, maybe it's not even about selling a car. Maybe you don't need to purchase a car anymore. Maybe car ownership should be a service. So what they did is they said, hey, why don't you group together with 4 or 5 of your friends, you all co-own a car, you all book that on an app, when do you want to use it, how much do you want to use it, how far do you drive it. Through the Bluetooth and your key, it recognizes when you're in the car, how often you use it, and you just get sent a monthly bill at the end, including insurance and fuel and everything. And so what they're able to do, people look for a car for about 3 months and don't look for a car again for 5 years. But what they now have is a direct relationship with customer every day, knowing how they use their car. They can recommend and swap in different cars. Now, Audi are experimenting with this, and who knows what data that might reveal, but it's a direct, orchestrated relationship with the customer. And it's not just about bringing the internet into the car, it's also about bringing the car into the internet. This is an Internet of Things device. So who's to say that in the future, this won't be a sales channel? So one of the other things we did is we just helped Qantas launch a new range of in-flight entertainment. And what that's about is actually bringing your personal device, your iPad, your mobile, sticking it into in the plane's Wi-Fi. So our plane's a future sales channel. Why? If I have a car and you know everything about me, where I am, where I'm going to, what I've been researching, and it's also the car's connected to Facebook through Audi Connect. So that's an awful lot of research, and I would argue in many cases that might be much more valuable research than something like a club card or a loyalty card and knowing what I purchased 6 months ago. The point being is that even something like automotive is trying to get a direct relationship with customer, and there is a fear of disintermediation for retailers. So when disruptors enter a market, this is Cab Online, which is the brand leader in the Nordics. It's another one of our clients. But the one you'll probably be more familiar with in the UK and the US is Uber. And when these disruptors enter the market, they don't enter the market, something like the taxi market, and say, great, I'm going to build a new taxi, or great, I'm going to have a new type of driver. They say, I'm going to have a direct relationship with a customer, and I'm going to organize a network around it. These guys are orchestrating. And you may say, okay, well, that's interesting enough for taxis, but what's that got to do with retail? Well, actually, when a company like Uber look at their network and they say, well, we've got spare capacity. Their spare capacity is about lunchtime when people aren't actually driving. So what do we do with this network of drivers? I know, we'll deliver them lunch. So Uber have just trialing Uber Fresh. And what they say is using the same app you've got on your phone already, using the same credit card details that we've already got, and using the same brand trust that you already trust, we'll get you your lunch in 10 minutes' time. So I'm not entirely sure why I need to go into a store anymore. My point being is these guys are orchestrating experiences. They are disintermediating retail with direct relationship with customers. And why wouldn't they? So, there are much-loved retail brands out there. So thinking along the same theme around grocer. So this is a piece of research done last year. And it said, which of these brands listed below offer the best shopping experience across mobile, tablet, and desktop devices? This is essentially saying who orchestrates the best experience. And if you ask any retail analyst out there, they'll tell you brands like John Lewis and Waitrose are much loved brands, and they are. They're trusted brands. But they've got really low figures here because as much as their in-store experience is beautiful, their online experience across the whole range isn't cutting it. And if you look at the top, who's top? With 61% is none. None of these retailers. The retail industry in grocery, there's 4 or 5 players that own 80% of the market. People know and indeed often love these brands, but no one is doing it well. So who's to say Uber shouldn't actually be coming in and owning and orchestrating that experience? And where does that leave retailers? So my point being is that any business strategy you come up with as a retailer, any way you try and understand the retail world, needs to factor in that you need to be orchestrating experience, and so is everyone else. So here's Seth Godin saying the same thing. The industrial age is ending and a new economy is emerging. All of the advances that we have made from industrial effort have mostly been extracted. We can't figure out how to make a new phone or a new pair of shoes. It's not about economies of scale. The talented people are spending their effort on building connections rather than designing new factories. It is not about economies of scale. It's not about globalization or business process re-engineering, or it's not about outsourcing anymore. These are production issues. These are scale issues. It is about the orchestration of experience, the economies of experience. And so that first principle is orchestration. The second principle is integration. So many of you will intuitively understand the point about orchestration. You'll say, hey, of course we need to sort of manage and orchestrate the experience across time, across device, across channel. Of course that's true. But what some people don't realize is actually that orchestration, those economies of experience, rely on integration. You are as much a software house company as you are a purveyor of products. You cannot offer that experience. You cannot orchestrate experience without the solid technical architecture. Now, and the thing is the CXO, they're not willfully blind, right? People don't sit in a boardroom anymore going, no, I don't see this digital thing. I don't see the revolution happening. They see it. That's why you come to events like this and you say, okay, great, but what do I do? And as an example of this, an example of the importance of integration, IBM do a study every 2 years or so. They speak to 4,000 biggest CEOs in the world, and they say, what is your #1 business challenge? And do you know what the #1 business challenge has been for the last 2 years running? Legacy systems. So they put legacy systems ahead of market factors, ahead of the macroeconomic factors. They say, the biggest CEOs out there, they say legacy systems. They say, we get it. We know we need to orchestrate experiences. We know we need to provide this omni-channel experience. But we can't do it because someone's come in and built some crappy database over here and we got some weird implementation of CMS that a contractor put in and we don't know. They get it, but they're fixing the plane in the air. And all this structure and infrastructure that used to be the barriers to entry to stop the other retailers get in are now quite often the things that are slowing you down around orchestrating that experience. So don't forget that actually as much as orchestration is important, that orchestration of that experience relies on solid integration and technical architecture. And a good example of one of the clients who really understand this well are actually the luxury brands. So we work with some amazing luxury brands, the most unique luxury houses in the world. One of those, for example, is Rolex. And Rolex understand this because as a luxury brand, you get it, right? You get that every single thing you do is a tangible representation of your brand. As much as the spinning cogs and wheels and beautiful timepieces on your wrist, every single interaction with the brand is the beautiful representation of that, is a tangible representation of that brand. And that's equally true online. When we show an asset, when we render a video, whatever happens, that needs to be done perfectly, as if it was a statement of the watch itself. And we've just finished laying in some complex technical architecture and a global platform for them because they fundamentally understand the importance of technical architecture to orchestrating experiences. And just finally, the last principle is evolution. So if you need to orchestrate and you need to integrate, then you also need to factor in evolution. So this is the slide when I proved my dad wrong, right? This is the slide when actually I say to my father that in fact he was wrong and Howard Schultz was wrong. This isn't the worst time to make decisions if you're a retailer. It's actually the best time. In the midst of disruption, it's not the worst time, it is the best time to make decisions. So I won't bore you with this, but ever since we discovered chaos theory, about 5 decades ago, we realized the world was far too complex and we could never guess it, no matter how clever you are. Even if you're clever like David, you can never get it. So what do you need to, so they looked for all these areas of science, complexity theory, for example, started looking at and saying, okay, so how do you make decisions in this world? And actually the same answer came back every single time we have dealt with disruption and we've made sensible decisions. It has been because we've used feedback loops. We've used feedback loops, whether that's something like a weather system dealing with wrestling with chaos, whether that's something like organic life using the feedback loops of natural selection, whether that's something like the scientific method, discovering experimentation and advancing human knowledge. It's always been the same thing. And more recently, open source programming, where you improve and you feed back to the core, or something like agile programming. And this was popularized recently by a lean startup, but I actually think that the best popularization of this is on the next slide by Taleb. There you go, boom, is anti-fragile. I don't know if any of you read this book. And what he points out, because of his background in maths and chaos, is actually the opposite of a fragile decision, the opposite of a bad decision, the opposite of a decision that is damaged from disruption is not something that is robust, that is resilient, but it's actually something that's anti-fragile. It's actually something that strengthens. So think about your bones. If you don't use your bones, if you don't impact your bones, then actually they grow brittle. But if you impact them, they grow stronger. Same as your brain. The more you use your brain, the stronger your neural pathways are. They don't wear out, they wear in, and so should business strategy. So the decisions you need to be incremental, you need to iterate, you need to go through these. And a good example of one of our clients doing that is Northern Copenhagen, who collect the data from different channels, so for example, from the website, and they understand what's trending, what are people looking at, and that informs how they move things around the store and display those products. It's a learning, it's a test and it's a learn. But just to finish off, what I'm not saying is that this is a substitute, that optimization is a substitute for strategy. This is about refining the strategy. So in the immortal words of Jeff Gothel, left unchecked, everything on the internet optimizes to gambling or porn, right? It's not a substitute for a vision or for brand values. It's just to say that we should benefit and learn from the feedback. So there's 3 pillars. Number 1, differentiation comes from orchestrating experiences around customers. Number 2, realizing those economies of experience relies on technical integration. Number 3, decision-making can benefit from your disruption. Your strategy should evolve through feedback. And I won't go into it now, but that's all wrapped up into an agile marketing framework and that we talk an awful lot about. So thank you very much.